From the creators who brought you RuPaul's Drag Race and $1 Million Listing, this is World of Wonder's Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Wow Report. I'm Fenton Bailey from World of Wonder, joined by my colleagues, James St. James.
Hello.
Okay, great. Yes, hello, James. A nice nod from you. Thank you. And Tom Campbell in LA, where it is super duper hot, right?
Wicked hot.
James in New York, where it is very cool and
nice.
autumnal, right?
Yes, it is.
We are counting down the top 10 things of the week that made us go, wow. Oh, well, let's just start at number 10. Go on.
Number 10.
I'm back from vacation. I'm refreshed. I'm rested. I'm going on a 6-month journey of taking care of myself and eating well. Hopefully it'll extend after that. And so I had the energy this week to get out and do things and stay up late for the first. So I watched Deliverance, the Lee Daniels movie.
Deliverance.
Now, if we could dedicate one show 10 through 1 to one person, it should be Glenn Close.
It's true.
She's in this incredible. Andra Day plays the single mother with the 3 children. They move into a house. It's based on a real story. It's haunted. But instead of going for an exorcist, they just kind of do it themselves. It's very Protestant, I think. They don't go to the hierarchy of the Catholic Church. They just kind of like accept Jesus and look the devil in the face. It's a little disappointing plot-wise. But what is not disappointing, why you must watch it, why it's number 1 at Netflix, in my humble opinion, is Glenn Close playing the white hood rat mother. This is what I've read. If I'm offending anyone, I'm sorry. Blake will cut it out. Hood rat mother of Andra Day, who was a terrible mother growing up, but now has cancer, is getting chemo, and has sort of the wisdom. Now, if I were to be true, because by the way, Tom Campbell moving forward, I cry 2 or 3 times a day now. Joy, empathy, commercials, I'm in a crying period. And what really struck me about this thing is like how flawed the characters are, how fucked up family can be, and yet they still love each other. And they do that in a really interesting way. Think of Glenn Close. This may be, I looked it up, there was a brief theatrical window. So this may be her Academy Award-winning performance.
No. First of all, because would you explain the teeth, explain the look, because I can't quite figure it out.
The teeth are when your veneers fall off. That's what you're left with.
Oh, okay.
It's true, but that's not that. I'm going to spoil alert for you guys. It's all about that's a flashback. That is the devil appearing in different forms to freak out Andra Day. Okay.
Oh, yes. The
if you have kids in the car, it's time to turn the channel. But the part you're talking about, it's like the devil appears to Andra Day and the preacher who's helping Andra Day. And Glenn Close says with nasty, her teeth, and she goes, "I can smell your nappy pussy."
Now, what does that mean?
She's just trying to freak people out.
I was freaked out. I was so freaked out by that.
And
wait, you watched it, Fenton?
No, I saw the nappy pussy meme, and I was like, I don't know if I can watch this. I guess I lasted 3 minutes, and when the boy went downstairs to drink some milk from the fridge and I was just like, I can't watch this.
It's slow. It's slow.
And even in that dinner table scene, Glenn, who is amazing, but she does that. So you know the nappy pussy thing is coming, and I was just like, I don't know.
That's the devil. That's the devil's work. That's not that's good. But the internet's a buzz. He makes classy John Waters movies, is what people say about Lee Daniels. He makes Tyler Perry movies, not directed by Tyler Perry. I think that's good. And who knew that hood rat Glenn Close, as a quote, is what I needed in 2024. And then somebody wrote to Lee Daniels on Twitter, "Sir, you had the Glenn Close in a 26-piece wig doing a sew-in on the porch in the hood. The Secret Service needs to be involved at this point." And Lee Daniels says, "This tweet could be an ad," which everyone's taking in good spirits. And by the way, I just want to say, Andra Day is so amazing in this. I love her music. I love her acting. There's such great casting in this. But there is something about, if you embrace it like a John Waters movie or something that's just so over the top and so wrong that it's right, it's worth seeing. And I feel like I get a lot of points for actually watching an entire Netflix movie from beginning to end.
Did you cry?
I didn't cry, but I was very moved by the dysfunctional family trying to help each other kind of thing. By the end, it gets over the top and it's a little too Christian for me. And I love Christ, don't get me wrong. Jesus, good friend of mine, big friend of mine.
Well, okay, that is The Deliverance streaming on Netflix, right?
Number 9.
I've been reading a book called Monsters, A Fan's Dilemma by a woman named Claire Diederer, or something like that. And she is describes herself as a progressive feminist who says that she is having trouble, like we all do, and like we've talked about many times on the show, with can you enjoy the art created by a monster? If someone is a criminal, a narcissist, a homophobe, a xenophobe, a criminal, can you still like this? And she's broken it down into chapters. And each chapter, I'm just going to talk about the first 3 chapters right here because it's sort of fascinating, each one. She starts off with Woody Allen, and she says that people today have a visceral knee-jerk reaction to the name Woody Allen and will not even consider watching one of his movies again. And if you get someone from Gen Z to watch a Woody Allen movie, they're just going to have that knee-jerk reaction and hate it on sight and not give it the time of day. But she went back and watched all of them, and she says that Annie Hall is the greatest comedy of the 20th century. She says, Bringing Up Baby, there's all sorts of, you can say Blazing Saddles, you can make a case for anything, but Annie Hall stands up. And it is still, you can fall in love with the characters, you can fall in love with the story, and you can watch it.
To add to this and to support you, I just recently saw an interview with Mia Farrow and Patti LuPone promoting Roommates, their new Broadway show. And they asked at one point, the reporter asked, Mia, what do you think about your work with Woody? And she still says it's wonderful work, and she's glad she did. She goes, and she said, I understand when other actors have an opportunity to work with Woody that they would. I don't have a problem with that.
Purple Rose of Cairo, Hannah and her sisters.
Alice, I loved.
Yeah. She really, and so, but, other ones like Manhattan, you cannot go back to Manhattan because he's having, he's a 40-year-old man having an affair with Mariel Hemingway, who's 15. Then she goes on to Roman Polanski. And that one's sort of an interesting chapter because Roman Polanski, yes, he raped the teenage girl in the hot tub in the 1970s. But she goes on to say that, his movies, Chinatown, Rosemary's Baby, Repulsion, Knife in the Water, are among the greatest movies ever made. Just they're some of the greatest movies of all time. And then and you can't dispute that. You can go back and watch them and they still stand up. But more importantly, and this is not explaining or excusing him, his mother was taken by the Nazis and executed at Auschwitz in the gas chambers. His father was taken to the concentration camps. He lived alone in the forest, scavenging for food as a child, and then was found by Nazi soldiers who used him as target practice and shot at him as he ran back and forth in the fields. And then later, as he's doing Rosemary's Baby, his wife, Sharon Tate, and unborn child were murdered by the Manson family, in one of the most brutal murders of the 20th century. So 2 of the greatest horrors of the 20th century happened to him personally. And she says, hurt people. And he's definitely a damaged person. And it's not to excuse anything, but it does go a long way in explaining his psyche. And then even though the girl has said that she would never press charges and she forgives him, blah, blah, blah. It's a whole big thing. Anyway, the next chapter is about Michael Jackson. And that one's fascinating because she talks about listening to Jackson 5 and the joyful music that it is. And then she says that there's some point in his career around Bad and Dangerous where the stain of the allegations of the child molesting started to affect the way you approached the music and the way you approached Michael Jackson. But how far does that stain extend back? Does it go back to Off the Wall? Can you still enjoy Off the Wall? Can you still enjoy the Jackson 5, even though, again, hurt people, and he was abused as a child? But is all of his music tainted by what happened in his late 20s and 30s?
I was driving last night home from the theater, which I'll talk about later, but Billie Jean came on and I hadn't heard it and I cranked it. And I just realized that song is so much a part of me that it doesn't, and Michael Jackson was but like I can, and the people I think about dancing with and all. So, what is art and who the artist is it's such a complicated thing. I can't sum it up and make sense. Different people have different levels of sensitivity around different things. And so let them have that sensitivity. let's try our best not to, trigger people, but let's also be reasonable that we live in a world where we hear all these different things and people are flawed. That's part of the Andra Day Glenn Close relationship. It's so flawed and so messed up and so wrong, and they do so much harm to each other. But in that movie, they find Jesus and forgive each other. So you know what I mean? That's why there's religion and stuff. I mean, and can we forgive people? It's the greatest. I want people locked up who are going to do harm. I don't want people who are going to do harm to other people. I don't think if they're found guilty, I think they need to be dealt with properly. But I don't know.
Well, I do also think, and I haven't gotten to this yet, but I think one of the great, and what we always sort of say in this argument is that maybe the person has to die, and then you aren't giving money to that person, you aren't supporting that bad person, and then in 50 or 100 years you can sort of excuse Wagner's or Picasso's anti-Semitism a little bit.
Caravaggio was a murderer. I mean,
there you go.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. Who did he murder?
People smoked on airplanes. I mean, we did a lot of stupid things, and I think the art, and it's the Sondheim in Sending the Park with George. It's like the thing we leave behind is art and children. And I think to see, there's we don't have control over it. And I think it's fascinating to talk about, and I don't have the right or wrong.
So anyway, the book is Monsters: A Fan's Dilemma, and it's an interesting book, very well written and very interesting from the first page.
I love it. That sounds really good. I'm going to read it. Number 8. Sometimes, James, the art itself can be the crime. I saw the worst movie I believe I have ever seen, perhaps in my life. An M. Night Shyamalan movie, Trap. I don't know if I can even get through describing how awful it is. Yeah.
It was a completely long form commercial for his daughter's music career. You had to sit through these long performances, an entire song, not just a clip.
His daughter is a lovely, lovely person, but a pop star she is not. And so they rent out some big venue, and she's giving this huge concert because she's a huge star, which she just so is not. And we are looking at her performing these songs that aren't really songs for a really long time. And Josh Hartnett is taking his daughter, who's a massive fan, to this concert. Well, spoiler alert, not really. He suddenly starts to notice all these police around in the stadium, and he's looking shifty. So you immediately know that he is the butcher, who is a serial killer that the police are out to get. Number 2, I mean, as if that isn't odd enough that you're going to try and apprehend a serial killer in a concert of 20,000 people. But thing number 2 is there is a FBI profiler who's like sort of Helen Mirren type, who is saying he'll show up, he'll do this, as if she's some kind of all-knowing psychic who's arranged this entire concert as a trap to get Josh Hartnett.
Haley Mills plays the profiler, and it's so weird. During the concert, there are scenes where he goes out into the concourse, and it's completely packed.
Yeah,
like that never happens. It's so unbelievable.
He goes to get his daughter a t-shirt, and the guy at the concession stand says they're out of that size, but to come back, and they go back together to the stockroom. No person selling you a t-shirt at a Taylor Swift concert is going to take you back to the storeroom.
And he's the one who spilled the beans about the heist to catch him.
Yes.
To him.
Was this on a streamer?
Oh God, what is it on?
And it's still in theaters, I believe.
It's in theaters, yeah.
Where did you watch it?
I wouldn't rent it.
Yeah. Did you watch it the whole way through?
Here's the thing. It was so bad. I was so slack-jawed at like the dialogue, the acting,
the audacity.
I was like, I have to see how this plane crash hits the ground. And is there a surprise twist? There is nothing that you do not see coming a mile off.
As just a single person with a single vote in this world, taking up a little bit of time and space, my only power in the streaming wars is to not finish a movie I do not like. So like that Jerry Seinfeld movie, I did not finish it. I showed them. That's
Well, no, absolutely right. So I guess it did have some sort of compellingness, because I was just trying to think, how did this get greenlit? How is it even possible?
Well, how good is Josh Hartnett though? Because I love a good Josh Hartnett. I love him so much. I want him to do well in the world.
It's like that Tyra Banks thing. We were rooting for you. We were all rooting for you.
I hate to tell you, Fenton, but you are a victim of the algorithm. The algorithm's gonna get you. The algorithm's gonna get you. The algorithm's gonna get you. You watched it. They win.
There's so many little things that are just like her fans, the pop stars fans are called The Flock. She's called Lady Raven, and The Flock wear fancy feathered wings. And it just feels so fundamentally out of touch, so old, so pre-Gaga in the 80s, if there was such a thing. And it's just really...
Oh, and that's a shame, because I love Haley Mills too. Haley or Allie, which one?
But the other weird thing is, I don't know, and I don't care. The other weird thing is how The Sixth Sense was such a good movie, and how this could be so appallingly bad.
I mean, it has been a downward spiral since, the Village, or the woman in the lady in the lake, or the woman in the water, or whatever. I mean, like, he's just had a string of just god awful movies.
I mean, one of the reviews did say, you got to hand it to him. To get a piece of original IP made in this market is kind of a feat in itself. I mean, it is. How did he do it? and one review,
who is still giving him money time and time again after every single terrible...
They go to the algorithm and they show Fenton and they go, look, he watched it all the way to the end.
Completion rate, that's right, absolutely. And here I am bigging it up, giving it much more publicity, because it
feels like people bonded over how bad it was.
I think so. I mean, it wasn't in the sort of camp space of the Deliverance. It's just bad, and you're like, at one point he manages to smuggle out of the venue with his daughter by going to the pop star and saying, I have a man in my basement and I'll just press this button and he will die, so you have to get us into the limo to get us out of here. They go to his wife's house. I mean, and the pop star is trying to delay because she now knows that he's the butcher. And she says, oh, I'll sing you a song. And she performs a song in their piano in their living room on the piano. And
I have a theory, though, that people today, the kids today, they get themselves a pizza and they get potted up on marijuana and they will just watch anything to completion. I think
maybe that's
potted up on marijuana.
Potted out of their minds is what they are, and they don't care about quality the way we used to.
Those whippersnappers.
Yes. And I'm not pointing a finger at you, Blake.
Blake,
I am going to talk about quality entertainment now. Wow Now is available on wowpresentsplus.com. Now, Wow Now is a streaming network, so you don't have to choose anything. You just go to Wow Presents Plus, and it will be playing perhaps your favorite season of Drag Race, perhaps a version of Drag Race you've never seen. It's a linear channel on Wow Presents Plus. Very exciting.
Is our podcast on Wow Now?
It is not, but you could,
gotcha.
yes, you could have a whole 24-hour cycle of this show.
You can do that on our YouTube channel, actually.
So there you go. Yes. Yeah. As I try to count from number 10 down to number 1. Let's take a break here on the Wow Report.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome back to the Wow Report. Fenton here with James and Tom and Blake. We're counting down the top 10 things of the week that made us go
wow.
And we've reached number 7.
Number 7.
End of a workday. I get in my car and I don't just go home. I go all the way to the Cineplay, which is in Hollywood Park, like IMAX, intensely luxurious theater experience next to SoFi and all that stuff down there, to see a IMAX preview of Beetlejuice.
Oh,
I put on my GPS. I go someplace I've never been before in traffic. I get there, and the Hollywood Park, it's supposed to be kind of like a giganto grove, and nothing's opened yet. So all of a sudden you think you've been pranked and you are like the only human left on Earth. It's like a Twilight Zone where it's just like, because all the storefronts are empty, but they have big bright pictures of what's going to be there. But you're literally alone walking through, and you finally get to the movie theater, which is barely marked, and you get in, and there's no ticket taker. It's all there's a big bar, a big restaurant. People come there sometimes just to watch football, but I get seated in my seat. There's menus, there's things. I didn't order any food, and I watched the wonderful Beetlejuice. Now, I read reviews afterwards. I'd say it took a while to kick off, but it's fun, and I recommend it. And by the middle to the end, plot starts to work. They have to lay a lot of pipe. Winona Ryder, watching her makes me just realize how much I miss Winona Ryder and how many years we miss Winona Ryder. Mm-hmm. She and Michael Keaton are kind of really good together. Catherine O'Hara is in it and used really well. Jenny Ortega, who I've not seen that much of, I'm very aware of her. She's quite wonderful too. It's a nostalgic sequel 36 years later or something.
And they don't use any CGI. It's all practical.
Well, yes, I was going to say, I was listening to our colleague Jess Cagle in the mornings on Radio Andy, and he was saying, I was interested to see how different the CGI and all that would be, because we watched the original last night, and I'm seeing the second one tonight. So, but I heard it's all a lot of claymation. Isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. It feels like that, and the whimsy of the underworld. And, I must say, though, Beetlejuice is sadly, maybe inevitably, a more complex character. Supposedly he's been dead for hundreds of years, but now he's got an ex-wife who's incredibly funny. He helps Winona because when he's feeling sorry about her daughter. So, I mean, and there's an underlying of dealing with death and the people you love and will you see them again. Which is all fine. And but it's not as, I just remember, I haven't seen Beetlejuice in a while, but my 10-year-old nephew did. So I had to retell me the entire movie, which he had a lot of fun doing. And it was such a jolt. It was such a radical, such an art.
Can we get your 10-year-old nephew on to recap movies?
Yes.
That sounds like fun.
Yes. I'll see what I can do. So go see it. It's fun. Spoiler alert. They switched out Harry Belafonte song. They pay homage to it by having a funeral boys choir sing the Banana Boat song. MacArthur's Park, the Donna Summer and the original Richard Harris are both prominently featured. And it goes into sort of psychedelic weirdness. And I love that. And I was giddy and fun.
Because I was on the fence about it. I wasn't sure whether I was going to do it or not, but I have a feeling I have to. So.
Just because it reminds you of the 90s in a good way. It reminds you
how
fun.
You have to do it in a big screen, don't you? You can't do it. You can't watch it on your phone.
I think it'd be better to do it that way.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. That's Beetlejuice in theaters now. Number 6, James.
Number 6.
I know I talk about it too much and you guys get bored out of your mind, but there was another weird MAGA storyline on General Hospital.
I knew it was going to be General Hospital.
I'm sorry, but they call it on Twitter now, on X, they call it MAGA Hospital because I'm not the only one who's noticing this. It's very strange. I remember I talked to you about how there was the storyline about the homophobic mother, and she had the big rant about her daughter being one of those alphabet people, and she was recorded and it was leaked to the newspaper, and the leaker was the one who was vilified on the show, and she was made out to be the victim. And then there was also the storyline about the people doing insider trading, and the whistleblower reported them to the SEC, and they went to prison, and they were the victims. The criminals were the victims, and the whistleblower, which is very Trumpian. It's a very Trumpian attitude that the whistleblower is the bad guy, and that the people who do the crime should get away with it. Well, now there's a storyline, and I just have to tell you, TJ and Molly can't get pregnant. They can't have a baby. And so Molly's sister, Christina, says, please let me be the surrogate. I want to give you a child. It's all I want to do is to make you happy. And so she gets pregnant to be the surrogate, right? And as she gets pregnant, as the belly is growing, she starts saying things like, I can feel my baby kick. I can, and she starts to name the baby. Oh, my baby's name is going to be blah, 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 blah. And so you realize that, of course, we're kicking off a storyline where she's going to run away with the baby. She's going to kidnap the baby. And then there's going to be a big, custody battle, Well, out of the blue, she's has an argument with this woman, Ava, in her hotel room, and she trips, or Ava pushes her, we don't know, but she goes flying out the window, the hotel window, 9 stories, lands in the pool, loses the baby, and so now...
But survives?
What?
But survives?
She survives, but the baby does not.
Sure.
Okay. Even though she fell 9 stories, it's hysterical to watch. It's so funny. It's done in slow motion, and you see her falling. And then it's like, cut to the next day, and then she's still falling. It's very good. But anyway, so now she's mourning the death of her child, right? Even though it wasn't her child, it was her sister's child, blah, blah, blah. And she keeps saying things to her sister like, you aren't a mother. You can't understand a mother's love like I do. And she starts saying, only a woman who is a mother is allowed to feel these things, and which is very J.D. Vance. It's exactly what J.D. Vance has been saying about, only women who can conceive, only women who are mothers deserve to have a place in the society. And she's saying things that echo J.D. Vance. What do you think of that?
Well, didn't they push out a window, though? Doesn't that help our side a little bit?
No, because she's still talking about the death of her baby, and she was the surrogate. She was carrying it for her sister. She's saying,
I get it.
She's saying, how dare you mourn the loss of this child? The baby was mine. I'm the mother. I was having, you aren't a mother. You can't understand this.
They are zoning right in on a hot button issue.
It is. And they're doing it on purpose. I tell you, there's someone, a director, a producer, a writer, some of the actors, they're all MAGA there. And it's very disturbing and sad for a show that I've watched for 45 books.
Well, as long as they don't feature a singing performance by Lara Trump.
Yes.
Well, you're going to keep watching, James. That's the one thing I know.
It's true, and it's because I think it's that outrage thing where they're pushing some buttons, and they're hitting,
it's your patriotic duty to watch this and to keep us informed and keep America informed.
I do. It's my
report.
job.
You're a great American, and thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for acknowledging me. My importance.
Number 5
in the soap world.
Number 5.
Number 5.
Oh my gosh, flops are very much in, I think. Movie flop. Wolves. Now, this often we're on the Wow Report, we talk about things we haven't seen. I have not seen Wolves, but I saw the poster for Wolves, and it was Clooney, Pitt. And I was just like, there is nothing that is going to make me want to see this, just based on the poster alone. And, oh, James, you put yourself on mute.
No, I'm shocked, speechless by this, because I have seen the trailer for it and it looks absolutely adorable. And I kept thinking, well, if Angelina Jolie can have a comeback, why can't Brad?
I love Brad and love George Clooney, but I actually have seen, like you, the 2-minute, 44-second trailer, which I thought felt long. Especially given that they used My Way in it. So the end is near. And I'm like, good God, we're only halfway through this trailer. And it is, as the reviews have said, the trailer's the same joke over and over. And the reviews have said the problem with the movie is it's the same joke over and over, which is two people who don't want to work together.
Oh, well. You guys, you think I'm just doing this as the algorithm speaks louder than all of this. Putting the Apple especially, and I love people who work at Apple. I have Apple, I have Apple TV, but like their movies are all these really like well cast, high end production value, kind of half baked productions.
Like they had an idea, but then they didn't have an ending for it, so they just sort of.
I just watched something with not Ben Affleck, but Casey Affleck and
Matt Damon.
Yes, and Matt Damon. My sister wanted to watch it, and we watched it, and we were both like, huh. It's sort of like the feeling of like a not good TV movie of the week done with explosions and money and some of the most sexy people on earth. But it's a weird disconnect.
Yes. Written by AI, probably as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is the most expensive streaming film ever made, apparently. $200 million.
Well, 100 went to Brad, 100 went to George.
They're upset about those claims. They don't correct them, but they're upset that people know that.
Oh, okay. Well,
but
anyway.
but isn't it sort of like one of those like Ocean's 11? You just sort of lose yourself in the fact that you're just looking at pretty people in fabulous outfits.
True, but against that, okay, so that trailer's been watched on Apple TV, YouTube, 844,000 times in 3 weeks.
Oh.
On the other hand, the Louisville Porch Pooper has been watched 999,000 times in one day.
Now, is that a movie? Is that a movie?
Louisville Porch Pooper.
It gives me everything I want. It's like this guy in socks who looks kind of cute, could be a movie star actually, goes up to this porch in Louisville, Kentucky, which a place I know well, and poops on the porch, and has now done it, I think, a total of 6 times at night, of course, and no one knows, and it went viral, and no one knows who is the mystery porch pooper.
And is he pooping out of vengeance? Is he doing this?
Knows.
Well,
Jim,
but I had a roommate who was very strict Freudian, and she was always saying that the act of pooping is an angry act in and of itself. That there's anger and aggression that comes with pooping.
I try to be angry twice a day.
I remember as a child, when I was like 4 or 5 years old, there were neighbors that I did not like, and I would go and poop on their lawn.
Oh,
I don't know if I should be talking about this, but
I'm not cutting that out.
You are the perpetrator of
Matt Breuer,
Fort Lauderdale.
What?
Clinton, pitching you, take the porch pooper and turn it into a documentary about all the pooping that's gone on, and you can interview James St. James, which we know.
It's gold. It's video gold. But I remember I had Matt Breuer who lived behind me, and he would be my watch out. He would be and he would make sure that nobody was coming, and I would just.
Did you ever make a chocolate pie? Did you ever give them a chocolate pie?
And I did it out of aggression. I did it to teach my neighbors a lesson that I did not.
That's disgusting.
I just have to get a couple of things off my chest. The WDRB, the local news station, said the homeowner says man continues to allegedly poop on his porch. I'm not quite sure where you're looking at the video. I don't get how allegedly.
Yes, you see him squat, and then the person has poop on there. Like,
unless they came with it in a little package and sort of.
I met John Waters years ago, and he said at that time, like 20 years ago, that most of the ejaculation scenes in straight porn were faked. So maybe this is a faked, aggressive act. I don't know.
And Jim, the owner, has only been filmed in silhouette for fears of his privacy, he said he was relieved. He's not violent. I thought that was funny, but but then he was genuinely offended. He said that it almost like this was worse. He said, and he also urinated on our welcome mat. Like, okay, so that's really bad. And then, of course, you have to leave it to I think it's TMZ. It's just a matter of time before cops catch his scent and wipe this one off their butt. But I would just say $200 million for a movie. Louisville Porch Pooper on ring cam,
free.
Yeah.
Make an aggressive act. Carry on. I'll be right back.
Blake, you got a question for us?
I do. What band announced on this date in 2001 that Viagra would be sponsoring their forthcoming 30th anniversary tour?
Oh.
We'll have the answer right after the break. And just before we go, I got to tell you, a brand new episode of Global All Stars airs today on Wow Presents Plus globally, excluding the US, where you can, of course, see it on Paramount Plus. All right.
I do also want to say that it was our last episode of the season this week of our podcast Night Fever with Ann Magnuson as the guest. And if you haven't watched, you can stream the whole season. You can go and watch it wherever you get your podcast or watch it on Wow Presents Plus. It is a wonderful season.
Actually, they should stream the entire series, I think.
It's true.
Yeah, let's do that. We'll be right back after the break.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome back to the Wow Report. I'm Fenton here with James and Tom. Actually, Tom's disappeared. I think he's
Pooping.
I think he really did go to go poop. poop.
And he didn't leave the conference room. He must have gone into Randy's office. And Blake.
Good. Randy won't know it was me. Yeah, I asked, what band announced on this date in 2001 that Viagra would be sponsoring their forthcoming 30th anniversary tour?
What could only be one thing, Fenton?
Kiss.
No, Rolling Stones.
Oh.
It's actually Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Huh.
Well, we've reached number 4.
Number 4.
I have 3 words. Ketanji Brown Jackson, Supreme Court Justice, doing her publicity tour for her book, Lovely One. And she is melting my heart, her intellect, her ability to communicate big concepts in really beautiful ways. I did buy her book. I'm listening to it. It is a very sober and smart recognition of Black people in America and where she's come from and why it's so remarkable that she's where she is. It's not a bragging book, but like she puts the nation and all that into context in a beautiful way. But I heard her on NPR. She's everywhere. She's on CBS. And I think you should listen to them all. But I was listening to the interview before I knew it was even her. And I just watched some other things. And there was this woman telling a story about how she found a note for a recipe or for a shopping list in her grandmother's kitchen. And it was something like the effect of broke sink, wait for repair. And all the words were misspelled. And she was like an 8-year-old girl. And she came running into her mother and said, look, Mom, look. And she was just laughing. She thought it was, who would not know how to spell those simple words? And it was her grandmother. And her mother snapped at her and said, how dare you? With all of the privilege you've had, all the opportunities you've had to learn, how dare you make fun of someone who hasn't had those same opportunities? That doesn't make you any better than them, any less than them. She goes, and she burst into tears and she ran away and she apologized. And that was just like one of the life lessons she learned about how we're all equal and we can't use our privilege and our knowledge against other people. And just the way she communicated it, it brought tears to my eyes. And then I realized it was her.
Well, now, but Tom...
Oh, you can't argue that one, please.
No, I'm not arguing that story. No, not at all. No, but what I'm thinking is with the Supreme Court, the way that it is now, doesn't she have? I'm disappointed that it is so corrupt at this point, and I paint everybody with the same brush. If you aren't doing anything to correct the corruption, then you're part of the problem.
I wish it were that easy. I wish she could fix it. I don't think she can. I think by her coming out and humanizing, and they're asking her all the tough questions. You should watch the interviews about, and she won't, she won't speak badly of Clarence Thomas. She goes, I only speak of myself, but like she's very judicious the way you want a Supreme Court justice to be. Right. Not playing politics. She's saying, I would, it's about, they broke it down. It's the perception of
corruption. Bad.
It's the perception. She goes, and therefore everything I do, I need to make sure it doesn't create the perception. So in saying that, I can connect the dots, and it's like Clarence Thomas doing nothing to erase that perception and seems to revel in it. It's remarkable to me that she can talk about her life. She went to Harvard. She's class of 96. She met her husband is white. They met in college. They became friends. They've been married. He's a surgeon. The way she talks about how they support each other's careers. She talked about she was went to a public high school. She got to Harvard. She was walking, down in Harvard yard one day as a freshman, full of self-doubt, full of imposter, just walking by herself in her own thoughts. She was, and a Black woman came up to her and she just stopped her in her steps. She said, persevere. And she walked away. So, I mean, we all have these crazy things happen in our life, but she seems to remember them and tell them poetically in a way that's so moving. And she even, to an NPR reporter who is a Black woman I researched, she goes, I shouldn't ask you about your hair, but I'm going to because you wrote about it. But they talked about her hair. She's like, listen, I was in law firms, and she felt the need always to be exceptional, not just to be good, to be exceptional, to work harder, to bring joy to even the joyless cases, and she said, quite frankly, I I don't have the time as a mother, a Supreme Court justice, and a wife, and all the things that she is. I don't have time to take what I used to when I was single to get my hair to look like it's so she has what she calls what does she call it, a sister, it was a sister locks, and she said she ran to a woman who had them 15 years ago and said, what do you do, who does it to you? For the past 15 years she's had her hair done the same way. Which it's weird we're talking about hair, but it speaks to diversity and the beauty of America. And the last thing I'll say, and this again, I don't know how this translates, but it's in the clips and she had with Nora Dunn, CBS. But she has a favorite poem. It's a little excerpt from it, because there's something that Clarence Thomas said about, there's this debate whether we're stuck, that racism is over, right? It's over. Affirmative action, over. It's over. And otherwise you're stuck in the past. You live defined by your victimhood. And she says, no, it's recognizing the gaps, that she's a living example of the American dream, but there are still gaps and we still have to be cautious of them. But her favorite poem, and this is the thing that made me again cry, because I'll cry anything, but The Heights. This is the Ladder of St. Augustine by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Heard of him? The heights by great men reached and kept were not attained by sudden flight, but they, while their companions slept, were toiling upward in the night. And that was her metaphor for just the Black people that came before her, for her grandmother who made a place for her in this world. And it's really it's this sort of idea of community and Americanism and the American experiment and the beauty of America that she's captured my imagination this week. And her book is called Lovely One. And when her mother was pregnant with her mother and father lived in Florida, and the mother's sister was in the Peace Corps, and they said, give us a list of African names. And the one they picked was Ketanji, and it means lovely one. So the right has been so good about incremental gains that have won them victories that we need to be, I try to be aware of the incremental gains, incremental things on our side that hopefully will lead us out of these dark times. Anyway.
Beautifully said. James, number 3.
Number 3.
I just want to give you sort of a quick update on what we're doing in New York and what we've been up to since we got here, Fenton and I. On Tuesday night after I arrived, Randy and I went to go see Oh Mary, and I know both of you have talked about it, and I just wanted to chime in and say that it is every bit as delicious as you both have said. I give you all the flowers in the world because it is so fabulous. It is so funny.
Isn't it rare that happens? Because normally you hear so many good things about something and then you're underwhelmed. Not you personally.
Cola Scola.
Cola Scola, yes. I mean, just absolute treasure. I mean, I want everything in the world for him. He's just so fantastic as Mary, and the John Wilkes Booth character is so handsome. And Abraham Lincoln was a different Abraham Lincoln. It was a stand-in was playing him. But he was absolutely fantastic. Really, really great. I enjoyed it. Last night we had the screening for Party Monster and the Nelson Sullivan documentary, and that went really, really well. We got to see a whole bunch of friends that we haven't seen in forever and ever and ever. We saw Diane Brill. We had nibblies with Diane upstairs at the restaurant while the show was playing, and so that was fun to see her. Lorna Zursky, Ryan Raftery, who has been on the show many times, Ashley Longshore, who is a friend of WOW. I mean, so many people we got a chance to hang out with. I sold a bunch of books. I sold like $800 worth of books. I was very happy. And then tonight, Fenton and I are going to go see Titanic. And I am very excited about that. Okay. And then and today I went to go to the Metropolitan Museum to go to the costume exhibit. And it closed 2 days ago. I missed it by 2 days. Oops, so but I have a friend I went with my friend Christian, who is a Greco-Roman Etruscan enthusiast, and so we spent the day in that area of the Met looking at the statues that he told me all the Greek stories.
I hate to think what you call me behind my back. Question, and because I'm getting a little teary just thinking of this. Was it moving? Was it moving? Like that's the old gang and new people too.
It was moving. I mean, it was. Mickey Boardman from Paper did a fabulous Q&A with Linux, who is a club kid who, that kind of thing when someone says, I was born when, and you're like, oh my God, you're so young. But she was very gracious and very generous, and said the Nelson film and Party Monster documentary had changed her life, and even said that it had saved her life, and that you suddenly realize
she was from an abusive family, and when she, her father was very abusive to her, and when she realized that she was trans, she discovered Party Monster, she discovered all those, and was able to get out of her situation and come to New York and find her tribe.
And it's the cycle, in the same way that James saw Warhol in the factory and was like, I've got to get to New York, or whatever it was.
And it is, we all find our tribe, and it's a nice full circle moment to see everybody and to come together. It's very hard for me to watch the Party Monster because I was not a person that I like to see. I said, I look better now 30 years ago later than I looked 30 years ago. It's just one of those things where it was a rough time, and it was a bad situation to be in. So I couldn't really watch it. And Nelson, I know that I talked to Michael Musto, and he said that he can't watch the Nelson Sullivan stuff because he'll start sobbing in public. So he says he watches it at home, but he can't go into public and watch it. I mean, it's a hard thing if you live it, but it's a fabulous still.
But I do
at the times.
It does make you realize that the magic of film and documentaries is that they can literally stop time, because it was uncanny watching it and just seeing Nelson and just getting that presence,
Yeah. And by the same token, to see Michael, both Michael and Nelson are gone, and they have different effects on people, but you still feel like you are with Michael as he's lying in bed talking.
Yeah. But thank you everyone for coming last night. It was a really fun, lovely night. Number two, Fridgescaping. I guess this is one of those internet trends that no one needs and that no one is really doing. But I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to talk about Fridgescaping, which is the art of laying out the inside of your fridge in an aspirational, beautiful way.
Why is it always shabby chic, though?
Well, I don't know. You put milk in a ceramic jug. I mean, I don't think that's so Fridgescapey, but apparently it is. And I guess the TikTokers put little photos in and fairy lights and
flowers.
And that is a little weird.
For years, because I live my life like I'm 10 years old and I'm putting like my models and things in my room. Everything's like on display, but I will put fun things in my cupboards. Like I have a Lennon Sisters like cocoa tray. It's in my cupboard, just facing out as art. And I also put sometimes, because I'll leave my linen closet I use for my clothes, and I put Keith Haring outlines and things. So when I leave my doors open, which I like to do, and it's a mess, I'm exposing art. Am I ahead of my time?
Cupboardscaping.
Well, interestingly, I am the opposite. In my refrigerator is full of black mold and sludgy things and food that's been there for about 6 weeks. So I probably could learn something from this.
Yeah, it's everywhere, James. And there's an article in the New York Times, and there's one woman who says, some artists use canvas. I use my fridge, and I spend about 6 hours doing it. And I'm like, okay, whatever. It's the Kardashians' fault, actually, Tom, because they started off with that pantry decanting thing.
Yes, right? Refrigerated RuPaul's Drag Race WoW presents merch is what I'm saying. Refrigeratable.
Yes, that's good. Or like a sort of a knitted milk cozy or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
James, I bet if you like chewed on some of the mold in your refrigerator, you wouldn't be sick as much.
It's probably penicillin. I am probably growing all sorts of new medical miracles in my fridge and in my bathroom as well. I'm just going to come out and say it.
Okay, James, we'll be right over in that case. All right, when we come back, the number one thing this week that made us go,
wow.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome back to the Wow Report. Fenton here with Tom and James, Blake, and me. Yeah, we've reached number one, right? Yes.
Number 1.
As you know, I'm not a doctor, but I play one here on the Wow Report, which means that I have a subscription to the New York Times. And sitting all day can cause dead butt syndrome.
How deadly is your dead butt?
Well, the name that might make you snicker, but addressing gluteal amnesia can help you avoid chronic pain. And it's just, they said, you just sit and like, it's not just the roundness of your butt, which I've never had, but it's actually muscles underneath. And if you sit all the time, so they tell you to walk or whatever, the way that you can see if you have it, and I don't think I do, and I'm not going to take off my pants, but I could if you wanted, is to stand on one leg and let the other one just calmly like sort of hang, and then squeeze your buttocks. And if you have this gluteal amnesia, then you will not be able to squeeze. It'll take you a while to squeeze your butt. Luckily, I can squeeze my butt on both sides, but it's in the New York Times. I think it's important, you don't make an ass of yourself. Yes, because if your glutes were really dead, we wouldn't be able to stand, but you can create, everything's all tied together. So, you heard it here first, people.
Dead butt syndrome.
Butt syndrome.
That's all we got time for, unfortunately. Thanks for listening to the Wow Report. Thank you, Blake. Thank you, James. And thank you, Tom. Good to see you. Same time, same place next week.
Okay.
Until then, go out and do something that makes the world go
wow.